Stress, 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 stress. I hear about it all the time when I say, hi, how are you doing to clients? Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. And sometimes we spend our entire session talking about stress and how we can productively support ourselves, because stress is such a beautiful wake-up call. And that's what I wanted to talk to you all about today. So often, the uncomfortable and overwhelming emotions that we live with day to day can help create a tremendous amount of insight and can give us a lot of different perspectives and opportunities to be able to change. That's what healing is all about. We want changes, but we oftentimes forget that means that we're going to need to change. And if we're coming home day after day at work and we're like, oh my gosh, it's so stressful. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. Oh my gosh. I'm going to ask you to take some nice big deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. I want you to remember that internalized stress is the core of a lot of health conditions for people, because unprocessed stress that's internalized creates inflammation. It can create a lot of bad habits, like things like retail therapy for people, or drinking a lot of alcohol, or getting less sleep, or watching a lot of TV, or eating tons of sugar. How do you process and cope with stress? So the idea isn't so much processing and coping, it's more coping, unless it's in a healthy dynamic of how we're addressing stress. So I invite you today to think about stress, and think about stress as being a potential wake-up call, an opportunity to create change. Opportunity to create change for you inside of your own life. But in order to make change, we have to think differently, and we have to be curious about what the stress is and what is it that we can do to help support our experience that feels so stressful. So again, oftentimes what happens is we've had a stressful day at work, so we get a glass of wine. We've had a stressful day at work and we eat a box of cookies. All that's doing is putting the stress even deeper into ourselves, because it's not addressing the problem. It's not fixing the problem. So what I'd recommend doing is just, first of all, acknowledging the fact that, wow, yeah, I'm feeling a lot of emotions and I'm feeling definitely overwhelmed and feeling stressed. The idea is that you give yourself a bit of space to explore what you can do to help support yourself release some of that stress. Sometimes talking about it can help. Sometimes walking and moving can help. Sometimes giving yourself just permission to ask that question and listen for answers, you might get more insight that starts to come up. Giving yourself permission to honor how you feel is a critical piece of stress management. And stress management is a very important piece of all of our healing journeys. So many of us have heart issues, lots of us have gut issues. Both come from how we're holding on to internalized stress and internalized worry. So the biggest thing when it comes to stress is being mindful that stress is wanting to get your attention. It's telling you something isn't right. Instead of ignoring it, explore, pay attention to what it is. Are you miserable at a job? If you are, look into potential aspects of being able to just inquire within yourself what your options are. You always have options. If you're in a really stressful relationship, what are your options? How can you support yourself so that you feel more joy and less stressed? Especially if you're in a pattern of overeating, undereating, over shopping, indulging in alcohol and sugar. All of these things in the long run are going to create a tremendous amount of inflammation and more internalized stress in your body. So this is a really powerful reminder for you to pay attention, because there's something going on that's not right, which is why you're feeling stressed. There's something that's not right, which is why you're feeling stressed. Most of us have been taught to brush it off, but it's trying to tell us something. Perhaps you're miserable at your job and maybe you're afraid of making a change. Maybe you're afraid that you don't deserve more. Maybe you're afraid that there's nothing else going to be there for you. Better. Think about it. In a relationship, if you're not happy, what's going on? What are you needing that you're not getting? What are your options to be able to create that and to get that for yourself? It's something I think a lot of times we just haven't been taught to explore. We've been taught to kind of just hold on and deal with things and kind of buck up. But the thing is that's not what's healthy and in alignment with ourselves, because healing is about changing. And if we're in a place or a situation where we're not getting our needs met, where we're not happy, where we're not feeling honored, where we're not feeling connected, the first thing that we need to do is make sure we're honoring and connecting to ourselves and how we organically feel. We need to be honest with ourselves. Now, if you're just getting by and you're miserable in your job and you're miserable in your relationship, and then you're drinking and eating all kinds of food and you're gaining weight and you're getting into debt, those things aren't going to help your health and wellness. So the question is, how do you stop and reset? Make a list of 5 things that you can do that you enjoy doing. The most beautiful thing that we can do to transform stress is to honor that we're feeling stressed and to honor that we're feeling pressured. And then have some things that we can do that create joy, that allow us a healthy experience to move through and connect to the other side of whatever that experience is. So being able to perhaps, if you like gardening, put that on your list. If you like taking a bath, put that on your list. If you like to get a massage, put that on your list. If you like to spend time with your friends, put that on the list. Now you might say, well, I like to have my wine and I like to have my cookies and I like to do this. But the thing is we're talking about how to integrate the experience of honoring how stressed we are, and then giving ourselves more of a balance point that can harmonize that so that it doesn't create internalized inflammation. So I'm not saying don't have your wine and don't have your cookies, but what I am saying is be mindful of the balance of life, because that's what a lot of stress is it's imbalance. It's too much of something that doesn't feel good to us in the long run. It's something that's unexpected. It could be something scary. There's all kinds of feelings that we have in relationship to it. Most of us have not been taught to explore our feelings. Most of us have not been taught to explore how we actually feel and acknowledge that. We're taught to minimize it. We're taught to put it to the side. Well, we can't do that if we're on the healing path that we're on and we're wanting to feel connected, we're wanting to feel energized, and we're wanting to heal our body. Health conditions, so many of them come from the actual daily habits that we have. People just don't realize this so often. So if you understand, so much of health conditions that we have are actually created by our day-to-day habits that are creating constant inflammation and constant stress. At some point, we need to take different actions to support ourselves. So if up until now, everything seems fine, no problem, what happens though is in my practice, I get the phone calls from women that are having heart disease and people that are having major gut issues. And we ask about the stress. And the first question that can come up is, when I ask like, oh, are you feeling stressed? A lot of times people are like, no. We go through a certain breathing technique. They're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea how stressed I was. We've learned to just deal with stress instead of realizing stress is trying to wake us up and tell us something is not right. Perhaps there's a change that we want to and work through finding the courage to be able to take. Perhaps we need to explore why we're feeling disempowered in our lives in these moments and what we can do to make a difference and what we can do to make a change. There is so many positive things we can do to make a difference. So if I've had a stressful day, I come home and I open my cabinets and I start looking for food like chips and cookies. I know I'm emotionally overwhelmed. That's my signal for me personally to know that I'm emotionally overwhelmed. So I close the cabinets. One of the things on my list is to make a beautiful cup of tea. I take that cup of tea and I go sit in my backyard if it's not freezing out. And if it is, then I might find a little nook in the house and I just relax. I put my phone to the side and I just give myself permission to feel the uncomfortable feelings of feeling stressed. As strange as that sounds, it helps me relax. Allowing me to feel uncomfortable is a critical key in supporting my process when it comes to stress reduction. And honoring how I feel, it's such a opening that happens by exploring what can I do to make a difference. If all of a sudden I eat a bag of chips, now I'm going to feel worse. I'm going to feel bloated. I'm going to feel tired, and I'm going to feel angry at myself. When I close the cabinet and I get a cup of tea and I go sit quietly and I take some breaths and just ask myself, like, what is it that I'm feeling so stressed about? What can I do to support myself? I might not get the answer right away, but the answer is going to start to come up. So watch your habits. If your habits are, a lot of times people will get them at the end of the day, they're lonely, for example, and that's a very stressful emotion for people. Anything that we're not acknowledging in the emotional body becomes stressful and can become inflaming to the system. So pay attention to what you're noticing. Pay attention to what you're feeling. And this is my biggest thing I could share with you today. When you're telling other people you're stressed or day was stressful, what are you going to choose to do to honor that and to help neutralize it? Meaning to relax. What is it that you're going to do that's positive for your physical body? So drinking a beer could be relaxing in the moment, but it's still going to be inflaming to the body. Perhaps you can take a walk. Perhaps you can put some lavender oil around you. Perhaps you can share a massage with your husband or wife. Perhaps you can take a nice hot shower. Whatever it is that maybe you can talk to a friend. Maybe you can journal. Maybe you can meditate. Make a list of things. Maybe you can read a book. What is it for you that would feel supportive to create the space of neutralizing and relaxing in a healthy, balanced way? People tell me all the time they don't feel like they're stressed. We get to the core of what's going on. They're like, I don't understand how I didn't notice this myself. Because we're overeating, we're over drinking, we're over shopping. We're doing the stuff that we do. We're overly focused on social media just because that's what we're doing. And what happens is it doesn't allow room to be able to allow insight to come up and to be able to heal. We are brilliant, and most of us don't have enough spaces in our lives to be able to really activate our healing button. Our bodies are brilliant and they know how to heal themselves. They really do. But our choices in our life have to be in congruency with helping our body heal. So if we're trying to avoid emotions and in the moment that glass of wine makes us feel better, for most women over 50 and they're having that glass of wine, their sleep pattern is going to start getting interrupted, or their body isn't going to be able to sleep as deeply, which is then going to create what? More stress the next day and more inflammation the next day. So this is a simple way of saying when you're noticing that you're telling people you're stressed, pay attention. Take some space for yourself. Make a list of several things you can do when you're noticing you're stressed to help you stop and relax that will reduce inflammation, not create more inflammation. And this is a really, really important piece of the healing process because most physical issues that come up for people come from lifestyle issues and also come from inflammatory response to foods, to emotions that they're not processing, foods that they're not able to digest and assimilate, and all kinds of things in their lifestyle. So just know that your choices matter. Know that you matter. Know that just because you feel the way that you're feeling right now in your day-to-day experience doesn't mean you're always going to feel that way. Just make one choice differently and pay attention. I'm not saying never to have a glass of wine. I'm not saying never to have a cookie. But if you notice that you're stress eating, you notice that you're stress shopping, you notice that you're stress living, the outcome of that might be okay right now, but in the long run, what's going to happen is you're going to create more stress over time and more inflammation in your body over time. The body is very gracious. So remember, preventative medicine is thinking ahead of the curve. It's paying attention to, if I keep this going for the next 10 years, what is going to be the outcome? It's not too much of a mystery for most people to figure that stuff out. Honor how you feel. When you feel stressed and you say you're stressed, how can you be an advocate for yourself and make a difference? This is a huge piece of the healing process. It's learning how to inquire. It's being curious without judgment. And it's taking small, consistent steps, paying attention to get tremendous results in the long run. You don't have to do this stuff overnight. Just be willing to make positive changes and allow yourself to feel happy, feel more relaxed, and feel more grounded. You are going to be supported in changes that you're going to make. Take big, deep breaths and start to explore.